Welcome back to your Pig Trail Show. Will Monclair alongside Kevin McPherson, who we got on the phone today. He's headed back to Little Rock after the game from yesterday. Kev, we were both there for that Florida game. Pretty good experience after a tough loss to A&M. All around, I would say there's a lot of things that we could talk about, but where do you want to start?
Well, the fact that Arkansas, I wouldn't have called that game a must win, but it was pretty close. I think the next one against Georgia is simply because of the net ratings for Georgia. That would be a bad loss, a quad three. This was a quad two result either way. Arkansas was so close to that bubble line. And because your resume, when you're that close, is not just about your resume, but what other teams that are also on or near their bubble are doing, you got to win games. And so I think, even though in my mind I call it a must win, it was a very important win in Arkansas after losing two in a row after having a 5-game winning streak in league play. To drop those two, I think, was surprising. But you had to get off the mat, and this was a Florida team that was coming in shorthanded. Its best player, a versatile big man, an all-league guy, a veteran, Colin Castleton, broke his hand in the Gators' midweek win over Ole Miss. And so he was unavailable, and Arkansas just took advantage, as they should have, took advantage of the weakness in the paint around the rim. Florida was a very good defensive team, a top 20 defensive team coming in. When you look at their efficiency, they were one of the top shot blocking teams in the country, but that was because Castleton was blocking 3 shots per game, one of the leaders in that category. So they were cut in more than in half in their rim protection with him out, and Arkansas attacked it. And I think when you asked me what stood out, having said all of that, it leads into a guy like Jalen Graham being your answer to run your offense through very often in that game. Plays off the bench, we know that. He's been, up and down in terms of what he's been able to, give Arkansas with impact and production. But you really, 26 points, that's a career high, 12 of 15 from the field. Most of it just work, get down, him working his way down to the basket. This is very interesting. Arkansas as a team, Will, shot nearly 58%. I just put out the 12 of 15 from Graham was a big part of that. Mm-hmm. But on 34 made baskets, Arkansas only had 8 assists. And so you'd think, well, what does that mean? What does it matter? This was a game all about isolation basketball and guys taking their guys off the dribble one-on-one. Graham doing his bit. I thought Nick Smith Jr. making his first start since December and only his third game back after that 2-month layoff. I thought he was outstanding. Now, when you look at him statistically, 4 of 12 from the field, but he was 0 of 4 from 3, and I think that's going to be the last thing that turns around and comes through for him. And it's going to be something that Arkansas fans are going to see is going to be where he takes another step. But 4 of 8 inside that arc, and he had in the first half a couple of runners and one, got to the free throw line, made both of his free throws, had a couple of steals, a lot of deflections. I thought he did a good job defensively. But what Nick Smith, where the real value is, it changes Arkansas's look on offense. When he's the primary handler, he tends to push after getting a steal or a defensive rebound, so it's a little bit different look, a change of pace than what Anthony Black brings, and that's certainly one of Arkansas's better players, and has been outstanding as a lead guard. But sometimes you want to throw a different look, and I thought Arkansas plays just a little bit differently, not only in the half court where Nick is a floor spacer because with him because of his ability to score all 3 levels, where defenders can't, defenses have to make adjustments to account for him, and it opens things up for others. We saw Ricky Council benefit from that yesterday after having 2 poor games back-to-back in those losses. He was 6 of 10 playing off the bench, Ricky Council the 4th, 3 of 4 from the line, so 15 points, and he hit the glass, 7 rebounds. I mentioned Anthony Black, 7 of 8 at the free throw line, shot 50% from the field, made his only 3. I thought it was interesting. He took a mid-range shot. That's not really been in his repertoire, but he knocks down a mid-range shot, a little fadeaway. So you started to see some things. When you're shooting 58% from the field, a lot of things are going right. And again, don't want to get over our skis. This is a team that was just playing for the first time without Colin Castleton, and that was a big deal. This is one of the better players in the country, but it was also an Arkansas team that took advantage, and we saw them not rise up. And at home a week earlier against Mississippi State, they didn't look like a team that had come in on a 5-game winning streak. They looked like a team that was getting beat to the punch for most of that game. They got down 16, had to fight their way back. Arkansas's midweek game after that was A&M. We haven't talked about that yet. Mm-hmm. Arkansas builds a 12-point first-half lead. They're up 9 at the half, and so many times this year we've seen Arkansas have second-half collapses. The previous 2 years when they were, basically a Sherman march through through the month of February where they're not losing, they're beating teams. A lot of those were close games where Arkansas just outplayed the opponent down the stretch. It's been the reverse this year, and I think that's where we've seen some of Arkansas's problems and losses. So coming out of that A&M game, it was good not only to get back on the winning track, but Arkansas had another game that kind of felt like that Kentucky game on the road where it almost seemed like it do nothing wrong at either end. So you bookended two losses with really brilliant performances. So you're thinking, well, this Arkansas team, is an enigma. But I think that's going to be less and less true. I think with Nick Smith Jr. back, he needs to be in this kind of role again. 32 minutes, his box score plus minus helps back up the fact of how valuable he was. Plus 23. The only player that was better than that was Mekhi Mitchell. He had a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, a couple of blocks. Then we talked about Anthony Black, Ricky Council, their stats. Jalen Graham's 26 points, but Graham also had 7 rebounds and 2 blocks. So I think when you look at front court and back court, I think it's probably the best game with that kind of balance, with more than one guy in each position having outstanding games. I think it's maybe the most balanced effort Arkansas's had going all the way back to the San Jose State game, which was early December. That's how long it's been where Arkansas's looked that good with several front court pieces and back court pieces in the same game. And you look across the board what Arkansas did to Florida. I mentioned the field goal shooting. Arkansas was only 2 of 10 from 3. The beauty in that stat is Arkansas only took 10 threes. They shot 82+% from the free throw line, 14 of 17. Against A&M in that loss, 7 of 14. So it's a little bit Jekyll and Hyde, but Arkansas had everything going. Plus 20 in bench scoring, plus 16 in points in the paint, plus 9 in second chance points. They were plus 7 in points off turnovers. That's been a real issue for this team. It was at A&M just in the game before. And then they were plus 6 in the fast break. So they dominated. They won every category. They win the game by 19, led as much by 25. But that big second half run that Arkansas came out with, that was the sledgehammer, 17-2. They went up from a 6-point lead at halftime to a 21-point lead that, like I said, again, swelled to 25 multiple times in that second half.
Yeah, Kev, it always impresses me how you got all those numbers off the top of your head. Obviously, you're driving right now. It's nice to see that 20-point win, but it was also nice to see all the Pearl Hogs that made the trip, obviously taking advantage of that All-Star break out in Salt Lake. I know you're buddies with a couple of them. Did you get to say hi to anybody?
Yeah, I've talked a little bit with Isaiah Joe. Stanley Amudi and I had a little head nod thing. It was very crowded. They had a lot of fans around them seeking autographs and wishing them well, and the kind of meet and greet thing after the game. So I really don't like to nudge in there and make myself part of that stuff. But I was walking by, and Isaiah Joe and his family were there for the game. And it's All-Star NBA All-Star break. The All-Star game's tonight. And this is the time of year. This is 2 years in a row now where Musselman's had Pro Hogs back in. I think it's a great thing because you also have recruits in there, and we're going to talk about that. But with the Pro Hogs showing love to the program, I think it's big. And it was really, you were there. You saw the reception that players got when they brought them onto the court in the second half.
It was incredible.
It was, they introduced them, and then they led the hog call. And then you saw just a swarm of fans. I was told that after the game was over, even after everybody left the floor and place was emptying out, when some of the Pro Hogs were leaving, there were fans waiting on them outside, and they would continue to sign autographs and be part of that. So I think it's great. It's always better when you win the game. But Arkansas had some recruits in. I'm going to go through that real quick. Terrion Burgess, class of 2025. This is like the third or fourth time this season he's been on campus for a game. But the 6'9" wing out of Benton, Arkansas, right there in central Arkansas, just outside of Little Rock, he's rated number 17 player in the country for that class of 2025. So that's 5-star range. That's 247 Sports that has him that high. But he was on campus. He took pictures with Muskin and went to the game, as did Cam Ward. Now, this is a player from Maryland. We talk about this casting a wide net and recruiting players all over the country. So you're bringing in the East Coast for this Florida game, but he's another 6'6". Musselman loves those big guards and big wings. But 6'6", small forward wing from Maryland. He's national number 55 player in the composite rankings. He's a 4-star, but he's also from that class of 2025, same as Burgess. So he was in. I got to visit with him, and he loved it. He was impressed with how the coaching staff treated him as though they have known him. That's the way he phrased that. And I thought that was really cool to be. He felt like he'd been treated like someone they've known for a long time. Anytime you get players on campus during the season, they have their own seasons, and so these weekend games matter. That was Arkansas's third SEC game at home on a Saturday, so you're able to get visitors in. The last guy, last but not least, Jesse Yoshi Nemo, another big guard, small forward wing, another 6'6" guy from the Tampa, Florida area. But he's class of 2024, so it was an unofficial visit for him. He came in on Friday, actually, and spent time with the Arkansas staff on Friday and then stayed over with his family for the game Saturday. So you had 3 visitors in. As Arkansas continues to make the most out of those Saturday home games, you only have one more now. You've got Georgia at home Tuesday, yes. Then you're on the road for 2 games. We know that Alabama, Tennessee. That'll be a doozy. Then Arkansas closes out the regular season on a Saturday, March 4th. That's a home game, and we know that Arkansas is going to have an official visitor. I want to talk about this real quick. Trenton Flowers. This guy's a 5-star in the class of 2024, and he's a 6'8" combo guard. And I'm hearing comparisons to Anthony Black. Anthony Black with a shot, but that kind of stuff. He's athletic, but he's a national top 25 rated player. A 5-star.
Wow.
At a Combine Academy, in North Carolina. And he's got Arkansas. He's had Arkansas in his top 5, his final 5. But this is a situation where he's already visited some of the other schools on that list, that being Creighton, Louisville, and North Carolina. He's going to visit Arkansas. He's talked about taking an official visit as well to Alabama, who's in his top 5. He's also considering a visit to Kansas, who did not make his top 5 list. But obviously, if he's considering a visit there, that maybe becomes a top 6. But I do know he's planned for the March 3rd through 5th. That's when Arkansas hosts Kentucky on that Saturday there on the 4th. But this is a guy that I'm told, multiple sources have told me a decision's coming pretty quick because he's very likely, if not already decided, to reclassify to 2023. And we know the Hogs have already got 2 players signed in the early period for that class, the 2 5-stars, Layden Blocker and Bay Fall. So this is a potential 3rd 5-star player that would fit in nicely with these guys if it were to work out that way. Now, things are always fluid in recruiting. That could change. I know Ian Jackson, he took an official visit to Arkansas a few weeks ago. He's also class of 2024. He was reconsidering whether he wanted to reclassify or considering whether he wanted to. That was part of why Arkansas had him in. He committed to North Carolina a few days later, and then he said, no, I'm going to stay put in 2024. So those things can change, but I think that's why Arkansas is having this young man in for an official visit, is because there's a potential for that, and so they're good with getting him in, because if he is reclassifying, a decision probably is coming pretty soon, because the spring period's not that far away. Less than 2 months from now when that starts.
Yeah, no, it'll be exciting to see how that works out there. Kev, we really appreciate your time, especially with you on the road. We don't want to distract you any longer. We're going to head to break. So much more Pig Trail after this.